What would happen if Spider-Man were in The Nightmare Before Christmas? Well, I have a new story and it comes from the Edge of the Spider-Verse featuring Spooky Man. So if you're excited for this story, drop some support and follow for more. The book starts off with the spirit in the sky telling us, the reader, this story is about Spider High and how it shares the grounds for a cemetery. The spirit then says,
A gloomy boy with a permanent frown, a quiet boy who never fit in, with a secret crush on a red-haired cheerleader. Unknown to him, he breathes his last breaths, for his path of life will soon be filled with deaths.
we then see some cheerleaders practice in their chair. Then the boy with a frown looking at a letter that says,
Meet me after practice to help with science, from Sailor.
he then goes to this area in the cemetery and says, Sailor, I got your note. It was taped to my locker. When he enters, he sees a bunch of jocks, one who says,
You trying to take my girlfriend, you kid?
Sailor, who is also with them, says,
Fish, did you write that?
referring to the jock and the letter. They run after the boy with the frown into the school, Dr. Krakenpuss, who tells them to stop running in the hallways. The boy with the frown hides near a boiler room and heads downstairs. While heading down, Fish pushes him down and says,
Nighty night, say hi to the spooky man.
the boy with the frown hits his head and hears a voice that he doesn't believe is real, and it says,
Be wary, young gloomy, for the night is high, and the path you must tread is where spirits fly.
he then says more, and before opening his mouth, the spirit says,
To free her from peril, to end this dark bliss, step forth into nothing and embrace the abyss.
switch over to the boy with the frown named Gloomy. He gets out of bed and says,
I'm alive.
his dad comes into the room and says,
Digging the new look.
Gloomy looks in the mirror and he looks very pale and his hair is pitch black. In the car, Gloomy asks his dad why they moved over here, but his dad doesn't give him a concrete answer and basically just tells him to live in the here and now. We then transition to when Gloomy gets to school and a lot of students are talking about his new look. He sees Sailor and says,
How could you?
out of nowhere, the entity from before speaking to Gloomy says,
Oh, she's a peach. I can see why you're willing to reach.
Gloomy begins to run, and it looks like he's the only one who heard and can see the entity. At this point, Sailor is highly confused and says,
I'm sorry.
because she thinks that he's running from her. She says that Fish faked the note and it was all a prank, and Fish is the jock from before. And while this is all going down, the school is preparing for a prep rally. This year, the faculty decide to use an ancient text in order to start the prep rally, but that ancient text ends up doing something. Not only does it transform all of the teachers into these different beings that seem very reminiscent to something that we've seen before, but also it puts all of the students in a trance. Once all of the faculty members are transformed, they say now it's time to summon the beast. Now, the beast is unknown to us, but it looks like it's going to be something pretty crazy. We switch back to Gloomy, who is running for his life, and we also see Sailor, who again thinks that Gloomy is running away from her, so she's trying her best to apologize and acknowledge that she understands everything that happened with his mom. But what Gloomy is really running from is the entity, and the entity says,
To shield them from gloom, you must enter the fray. In the dance of the dead, you'll lead the ballet.
we switch back to the faculty and all of the students who are in a trance. Now, they're trying to summon this beast, but then something goes wrong. As they start to summon, they notice that someone is missing, and in order to finish summoning the great beast, they need her, and that someone is Sailor. We switch back to Gloomy, who is running away, and he hears the entity say,
Just trust me, kid. There's no reason to lie. Tonight is you who must fall down and...
As soon as we hear the pause, a tree falls down, and it's about to fall on top of Sailor, but Gloomy pushes her out of the way. But who's hit by the tree? It is Gloomy, you see. Now Sailor runs away and she says, I'll go get help. Stay right here, don't move. But when it looks like Gloomy has been unalive, something starts to happen. A dark metamorphosis occurs, and now the entity becomes Gloomy, and Gloomy is now the entity. He has finally become Spooky Man. And Spooky Man says,
Now pity the demons and monsters all roast, just sharing your form, Gloomy. So step back and see what together we'll do, combined into thee.
Then switch to Sailor, who went to go get help, but she runs into the faculty, who are now transformed, and they needed her to summon the beast. Spooky Man jumps onto the scene and says,
Don't touch her, or I'll rip you apart.
Spooky Man then fights them off, but they're still able to capture Sailor. The faculty say it's too late, as the possessed cheerleaders finish their chant. Spooky Man says,
Oh no, the rumbling started, like the sound of a monster who has gone and farted.
We then hear,
Finally, I have returned to the world and hunger.
Spooky Man says that he must stop this, and he hears the sound that says,
Gloomy, it's up to you.
Spooky Man says,
That voice. Mom?
the cheerleaders attack Gloomy in the final battle as the beast is about to feast. Spooky Man realizes that he needs to feast on one of the cheerleaders' soul to disrupt the ritual. He feasts on her and we hear, Kaboom! We then switch to Gloomy and Sailor. Sailor can't remember anything, but she knows Gloomy saved her and gives him a kiss on the cheek. The entity says,
Young love.
Gloomy says, I'm all alone. The entity says,
Not true. Not alone. Beside you I'll stay, and from now on, when there's trouble, I'll just be one terrible, horrible death away.
and this comes to the conclusion of our story. Wow, what a different take on a familiar character. I hope we get to see Gloomy again, but the Spider-Verse continues. Type in Star Spider for more.